That recording will be disseminated after the webinar along with the presentation, any corresponding materials, as well as the closed captioning transcript. I think I've got just about everybody muted here that I need to, but please double check that you're muted if you've called in via the phone. You can do that either pressing the mute feature on your phone or *#. We'll do it as well, and that just makes sure that we don't have any interruptions throughout the presentation. A couple quick housekeeping things before I turn it over to David. I want to remind you that you can access all the old archives on the IVRS website, and all the videos are posted on YouTube, so you can find it on the same channel. They're all housed there under playlists that can hopefully make it a little easier to find what you're looking for. And I want to encourage you to subscribe to that channel, please, when you go there to either watch an archive or access a success story, one of WIOA's success story to show somebody else. Also, I will be able to provide you a certificate of attendance for attending the monthly webinars live. So I will ask you if you would like a certificate of attendance for attending today's webinar to stay on the line. After the call's over, I'll do a little pop-up window. And so if you are needing a certificate, I'm going to ask you to please put your name in there and your agency requesting that certificate. I know some of you are also listening in groups. That's okay. Please share everybody's name that needs a certificate that's sitting there in the group and where you're from, and I'll get those distributed back out afterwards. I will not be able to provide you a certificate kind of retroactive for the other webinars for this year, the February and March webinars. So what I would encourage you to do if you want that to count towards your continuing education is just print off the invite that we sent out and have the staff that attended maybe sign that and their supervisor and put it in the file, or turn that in for your CESP. And then just one more last thing, starting in May, so for our May 9th webinar, we will be using a different platform. We will no longer use Adobe Connect. We are planning to move to GoToWebinar. So it'll look a little different, but you'll connect in the same way that you do now. You'll get an invitation with the information, including a link and a phone number to call. So again, you'll connect in the same way, either via computer, via phone, or both. Again, the screen might look a little bit different, but we're going to do everything we can to make that transition as simple and as seamless as it can be for you guys. And we'll continue to offer some of the same features, including closed captioning, recording, and certificates of attendance. I think that's it for me, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. David Mitchell.
Thank you, Jessica. And Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you're talking about accessing the YouTube links for the archive videos, if you go to the VR website, on the left-hand side of that page, there's a tab that says Iowa Employment First. And if you click on that, it'll take you to a wealth of resources, which would include some links to our archive videos. So I would encourage you to do that and follow up with what Jessica was instructing us to. I'm pleased to introduce Brian Dennis. Brian is part of our Employment First leadership team, and he knows how to make a grand entrance because I heard him come on here. So we're really pleased to have Brian and his expertise. This is a really good topic for us because one of the initiatives of the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act is to look at how we partner across systems to align services and increase capacities. And one of those key partners and one of the leaders in the state has been our workforce centers. And Brian has been a key piece of that through his work with the Disability Employment Initiative. And he'll tell us a little bit about that and I think give us some guidance in how providers and individuals can interact with our workforce centers and DEI programs and what expectations might be as we look at increasing access to employment services to help individuals look at competitive community integrated employment. I think many times we think of the workforce center, but usually, maybe not in terms of working with some of the individuals you are interacting with that are most significantly disabled. And I think Brian will give us some cues to help with that, and is a very willing partner, and the Workforce Center is working hard at accessing services for all. So Brian, thanks for joining us, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dave, and I always like to say it's a pleasure. I sometimes wonder if you mean that or not, but I'll take you at your word. So thanks everyone for jumping on. I'm having some technical difficulties, so Jessica's been nice enough to volunteer to advance the slides for me as we go so we can make sure that we cover the information for today's presentation. And before I get started, I know when I go out and I interact with partners and customers in the community across the state, sometimes what a common thing that I get is how to connect best to workforce centers. I'm going to give you guys some ideas, some information on on who connect with workforce, because unfortunately sometimes workforce can be sometimes a bit of a faceless entity. I've been with workforce in various capacities now a little over 4 years, and I can tell you before I started here, I had similar experiences and sometimes feelings. So if nothing else accomplished today, you know workforce by you know me. So if you're having any type of problems connecting with the center in your region, at the very least, you can always give me a call, send me an email, and I will assist you in getting connected with that specific center. I'm going to have contact info for your regions, but if that isn't working for you, please do not hesitate to give me a call, send me an email, and I will get you guys a response, okay? And all my contact information is at the end of the presentation. So first off, and I kind of advanced the slide too, is workforce services. So I discovered this just to talk about who we are. We are technically what's called an America's Job Center. Some folks use the term one-stop, which basically means we're tasked with helping any individual that walks through our doors and moving towards employment. So you should never get any feedback from a workforce center that says we don't serve that particular customer. We definitely may need to be partnering to address that person's need. That's the hallmark of WIOA. But we are truthfully in this together, and we're around to help any customer that walks through our doors get whatever assistance they need to meet their employment or educational goal. We've got a lot of nicknames. Some folks call us Iowa Workforce Development. Some folks call us Iowa Works. That's my preference. Unfortunately, some folks still call us the Unemployment Office, which we really don't like that term. We like to call ourselves the Reemployment Office. But just from a branding standpoint, we're Iowa Works. That means we're the field office of Iowa Workforce Development. This typically only happens like if you're in the Des Moines area, but this has happened before. If you Google Iowa Workforce Development and you look up Des Moines, we have 3 offices in Des Moines, and it's really easy to go to the wrong one. You're looking for Iowa Works. That's the office that serves the customers rather than our administrative offices. The information at the bottom of the slide is pretty much just our kind of our mission vision to access education, training, employment, particularly for folks with barriers. That's all barriers. Having a disability definitely is, for many folks, a significant barrier to employment, but also whether it's education, training, homelessness, supportive services, we really try and be a one-stop shop and partner with individuals who need that. And as you can see, our goal is to maintain an integrated, job-driven workforce system. Last up is workforce centers usually comprise of Title I and Title III of WIOA. And that's basically both the education and training wing and a lot of that unemployment labor market side of the services that we provide. The next slide, slide 3, is a list of our workforce services partners. And you can see at the top of that list is VR, but we have several partners throughout the community that are either co-located in our buildings or we have a memorandum of understanding of we're going to work together to serve a common shared customer. Again, we're in all this together. The next few slides, I'm on slide 4, is just the overall map of the state. So you may not know which region you are when it comes to workforce centers. So there's a map on slide 4 that breaks down the state in different regions. And if you go to the next couple of slides, it tells you which counties are in your region. So technically we have 16 regions in the state. We have 15 in reality because regions 3 and 4 are the same region. And I'm having all kinds of computer problems because my computer just quit advancing slides. So Please bear with me for 1 second.
Brian, I'm on slide 6 if that's helpful.
It is helpful. I just cannot advance beyond it. So you're looking at, I'm sure,
No worries. Yep.
yeah, you're
We're
looking
on
at
the region,
breakdown.
starting with region 9. Yep, so we're on
Sure.
the second slide of region.
Okay. Technical difficulties are tough to deal with in our world, unfortunately. As I'm attempting to get my computer unfrozen, Jess, can you just advance to the next slide and just give me kind of a synopsis of what it is, and I'll just carry on.
Absolutely. So the next slide is center services, membership, basic career
Sure.
services, and individualized
Fantastic.
training services.
Okay. So many times one of the things that comes up a lot is if I want to work with workforce, what are the first steps that I need to do, my customers need to do, the folks that I'm in support of need to do to really get assistance with the Workforce Center. So the first thing is we are an open system. So we really work on an open door policy. So there's very little any person has to do to get some level of assistance from workforce other than connect with the center. So there are centers in every single one of your regions. Some, unfortunately, we typically have one center per region. So some of those centers may be further away for some of you than for others. But one of the first things you need to do to connect with the Workforce Center is come in and do our process that's called membership. And when a person goes through membership, what they're really doing is connecting with the center so we can really track what we're doing with that individual. The idea is when you come in membership, you input your information, and it helps us not only understand kind of where you're at, but more important, what type of barriers you're facing and how we can assist you with surmounting those barriers. So if Jess goes to the next slide, a lot of the pieces of membership is pretty straightforward. And I like to tell people that if you can do social media, you can do membership. It's a pretty straightforward process. And for the folks that you're supporting, if they need assistance with going through the membership process, be it they bring support with them or want someone from our organization to assist them, we definitely can do that. One of the first steps when you do membership is pretty much to establish a username and password, which is you go through, you create your username and then the password that goes along with that. As long as the individual knows their username, they'll never be locked out of the system. If a person comes to the center right now, they know their username. If they've forgotten their password, we can reset their password in about a minute. It probably doesn't take that long. If they don't remember their username, we can also look that up for any customer. But typically, you need your username and password primarily for your first visit. It lets you enter our system, and we can just get some demographic stuff to get you connected to the center. A lot of that is just your best contact, name, address, phone number, email address if you have one. If folks don't have an email address and they would like one, we definitely will sit down with them and help create an email address. And then beyond that, it's a bunch of just drop-down boxes to self-identify. So we'll ask level of education. We'll ask the person is or is not a veteran. We'll ask, do they have, if they face homelessness. And then we'll ask about disability in a couple different ways. Because we are trying to make sure we're staying in line with WIOA and we have some disability-specific services, we do try and track a person's disability status if they choose to disclose that. Under our umbrella, to be considered a person with a disability, you need to meet one of two standards. One is if you receive disability and or SSI benefits. So we just simply ask that question, do you receive disability and or SSI? And a person can answer yes, no, or choose not to disclose. Beyond that, the other one is, do you self-identify as having a disability? Again, yes, no, or choose not to disclose. Answering yes to either of those questions, yes, I get some type of benefit payment because of my disability status, or I simply self-attest that having a disability makes you a person with a disability within our system. And because we do have a couple different initiatives based on being a person with a disability, it makes you eligible for services, especially through what we call the DEI project, the Disability Employment Initiative. And I'm back up and running now. So on to slide 9. Some basic career services. Before I get into these, here's what I want to state. For what we call our basic career services, there is no eligibility. If a person wants to take part in any of these services, all they need to do is connect with the center. If a person comes in, they do membership, then they're eligible for all these basic career services. One of the first ones, people use our centers just for access to different ways to look for jobs, do homework. We have computers, copiers, phones. A lot of it's for self-directed job assistance. We have a job matching service where if a person gives us their education, background, qualification, skills, what they're looking for, we can send them job leads. And then we obviously have things that we call our staff-assisted services, which is people get help from our staff on site. And a lot of that is doing career searches, so looking for jobs, connecting with employers. We help with career planning. In fact, that's kind of the new term we try and use for the majority of our staff is a career planner. So what type of work are you looking for? Are you looking to get back into the field you used to do, looking at doing something different? Are you trying to connect with employers? We have an entire business services team at our centers that work with engaging employers. And we have more intensive level services I'll talk about here in a second. And we have, obviously, our partnerships. So that's with VR, the Department for the Blind, lots of community service organizations around town, Goodwill, Easter Seals, really whatever is in your regions. We try and partner with those individuals. And what a lot of folks really value is our work readiness calendar. So these are a series of workshops that, again, any individual can take that is shown to really be effective with folks moving back to work. So on the next slide, we talk a bit about some of those workshops. And we have a variety of them, and I will say this, there are some differences between regions because we try and customize the workshops to the region that's being represented, but we do have some common ones. One of the big ones is that we help individuals create their resume cover letter and their cover letter. So those are typically offered every single week to assist individuals in doing that. So we kind of do it in most of our centers as a two-step process. One of the first ones is we have individuals actually attend a workshop or a class, however you want to call it, about the basis of doing a resume, and then we actually help them create their own particular resume that they'll be using going forward. We have a series of workshops called 6 Steps. This is really good for folks that are really learning on transitioning through employment. So everything from how to have a great attitude when looking for job search, not to be discouraged, to interviewing skills, talking about salary, all those sorts of things. Poets, and the name of this workshop may be changing, but Poets is really designed to help individuals who have some type of criminal background and move into employment. In fact, every center has individuals who are certified as offender workforce development specialists, basically folks that with reentry. And then we have a few soft skills workshops that are available. One is called A-Game, which is a great soft skills series that talks about bringing your A-game, bringing your best self to the vocational setting. And this is really soft skills development. So within A-Game, because we're very creative, A-Game really is a series of things based on the letter A. So appearance, attitude, accountability, all those sorts of things. We've shown it's really helpful for folks who are looking at their first job or just have been finding they're getting stuck. And the last couple that I'll talk about is Working It Out, which is based on an assessment to kind of get how you work in the work world, the best jobs that fit your personality type, and then the NCRC, which is a basic skills assessment. All of these workshops are meant to be where they can be made as accessible for individuals as possible. Probably the one that we do the most accommodations for is the NCRC. Now, I'll say this. With the NCRC, we're licensed to give it. However, we do not own it. It's an ACT product. But we have definitely done it in a variety of ways. We have, for folks, given them additional time for it because the NCRC assesses a person's reading skills, their math skills, and what's called locating information, which is their graphic learning ability. Can you look at a picture and use the information grasped from it? We've done that for individuals in a one-on-one setting instead of in a group setting. For individuals who maybe have a barrier with their literacy based on their disability, we have folks that that can read it to them. In fact, they have to go through special training to be a reader, so you're not inadvertently giving a person the answer. We have available in Braille, and we try and accommodate as much as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes there are some things that ACT would not let us do, but in every center, the NCRC is made as accessible as we are allowed under our agreement with ACT. And I will say this, it is not the only assessment that we utilize, so we definitely, every center has alternate assessments that they can utilize instead of the NCRC, if that type of assessment is what a person is looking for. Hey, Jessica, can you go ahead and go to the next slide? So next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the intensive level of services, then I'll get to Ticket to Work in the DEI project. So my computer issues have resurfaced, so I'm going to go from memory, but Jess, please correct me if I'm wrong on anything. When it comes to additional levels of service that folks use, what we would call our intensive or individualized services, that may reflect some of the needs of some of the folks that you guys are serving. When we look at our basic career services, that's work on a team model. So an individual may meet with a specific person on Monday, and they come back on Tuesday, they may meet with someone else, and they will follow where that person left off. Versus in what we call our individualized services, that is where the individual has a specific case manager that will work with them on their needs. Because of that, that level of service does have a couple of eligibility guidelines. You can kind of see the guidelines through there, but just in short strokes, we have two eligibility groups. And I will say this, the services that an individual gets is the same regardless of the eligibility group. The first is the dislocated worker population. We sometimes call them the DW population. That is an individual who lost their most recent job through no fault of their own. So they laid off, the company closed. They may have even gotten fired, but if they receive unemployment benefits, that means that the person lost their job through no fault of their own. And then they have a barrier to maybe going back to it, and disability can definitely be considered a barrier. I would say, though, the majority of the folks we come seeing in our offices anymore, regardless of disability status, is what we call the adult population or the low-income adult population. And these are individuals that will qualify based on an economic need. When a person is a low-income adult, first thing that obviously they're an adult, but secondly that their income falls underneath a certain income threshold, or they receive one of three services. So if their family receives FIP benefits, if they receive SSI, not necessarily disability. With disability, we'll look at the amount that they receive from disability to see if that falls underneath the income threshold. For most people, it does. And then, or if they receive any amount of food assistance. So if they're on FIP, SSI, or food stamps, those individuals are automatically eligible as a low-income adult. From that point, it depends on what the person needs, the type of services that they can receive. One of the services that we receive, especially regarding education and training. What we do in our centers regarding education and training is we cover the gambit of what a person needs. So everything from a person working on getting their high school equivalency, working on ESL, on up to getting a bachelor's degree, we can assist with that. And we can assist with it a couple different ways. One is from a financial standpoint. Every region has a certain allotment of funds that they can spend on an individual to assist them with meeting those costs when it comes to education. So that can be tuition, books, fees, anything that goes along with that. Second, things like supportive services. So we're allowed to pay for an individual's transportation back and forth to training. If they would have, let's say, a child care need, whatever the person needs to help them be successful, we can assist with that. It also is not conflicting with VR funding as well. So folks are definitely allowed to co-enroll and get assistance from both VR and from Iowa Works when it comes to that sort of assistance. Beyond that, they can also come in and get intensive assistance with looking for employment. As I said before, we have actually a business marketing specialist is a term that we use in the center, but basically folks that work with employers on developing jobs for individuals of whatever their need is, as well if a person is enrolled for intensive services, they do get a case manager who can assist them with those job-seeking activities, so whether that is working on their interviewing skills, looking at any type of accommodation the individual may need, connecting with employers, support in an actual interview. The centers are able to provide that service. And again, for folks that may need that intensive level of service, that's where we want to connect them with that specific case manager in the center. Hey, Jess, can you go ahead and advance for me? Now, are we on Ticket to Work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And just thank you so much for all your help. So we also have a couple of things that definitely are specific for folks with a disability. One of the first ones is our Ticket to Work, the Ticket to Work program. So first off, when it comes to Ticket to Work, every center in Iowa under Iowa Works is part of an employment network. So this means for individuals who are on disability or SSI and they look at assigning their ticket and participating in a Ticket to Work program, they can come to an Iowa Works office and have their ticket assigned. Every center will have an individual that works with Ticket to Work that can assist that individual. Some centers have multiple people that can work on developing that person's ticket plan and assigning their ticket. One of the big things we do as part of that is benefits planning. So every center will have someone that is either a certified benefits planner or maybe going through training to be a certified benefits planner. So that's something that we take very seriously, and part of that Ticket to Work is connecting folks with understanding how employment may impact their wages and very well may impact their insurance, especially things such as Title 19. Beyond that are folks that sometimes have worked with VR previously and maybe VR is closing their case. We have a partnership across the state. We have a partnership plus agreement with individuals who, once they are done working with VR, their ticket will no longer be in use with their VR agency. And if they're wanting to reassign that ticket to another agency, they definitely can come to us and we can work with them. Also, if they've worked with us previously and then they go to VR, we have an agreement where we work out who's going to hold the ticket. At the very least, we don't ever want anyone to be in a situation where they go, well, I work with Workforce, and I work with VR, and I'm doing Ticket to Work. Who's supposed to hold my ticket? It's definitely up to customer choice, but Workforce and VR have worked very diligently on making sure that there would never be any conflict over assigning tickets. My strongest suggestion that if you're working with an individual who has a question about their benefits planning, definitely contact the center if you have those questions. Again, we have several benefits planners across the state of Iowa who can assist with that. And at the very least, we have a couple of individuals who work on it statewide. Sheila Stokel, who's out of Mesa City, as well as myself, and I'm in the Des Moines area, that you can also call us and ask those questions, and we can also connect you with the appropriate resources if that's something that you or the person that you're serving may be looking at. Next slide, please. So we should be on the Disability Employment Initiative, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I have a good memory. I'm proud of myself. Okay.
You're doing great.
Thank you. So DEI, now this is really one of the things that I spend probably most of my time on. I wear a lot of different hats in my job, but DEI is my biggest hat, I'll say that. So I'm going to speak a little bit about DEI, and then we'll move forward to any questions that you may have. So DEI stands for the Disability Employment Initiative, and you should be seeing a slide that talks a lot about all the goals of the DEI project and its strategies. Here's really what DEI is designed to do. It's to assist customers with disabilities get better connected with workforce centers. For all the language that you may be seeing on the slides, that really is the crux of what DEI is designed for. For a person who has a disability that's trying to connect with the traditional workforce centers, we need to be assisting them more with that. So DEI predates the new WIOA legislation, but the two are really aligned. I like to say DEI was WIOA before there's WIOA. So DEI is currently only in specific parts of the state. However, there's strategies that can be implemented anywhere. Part of the DEI initiative is to, again, help individuals who have a disability get connected to jobs and careers based on what their employment goals are. So because of this, we have 5 DRCs, which stands for Disability Resource Coordinators, in different parts of the state who are subject matter experts, especially when it comes to factors that impact factors of disability impact employment. So those individuals, and there'll be a slide that speaks to you about where those people locate their contact information. But we have those folks are in the region 3-4, which is out of Spencer. We have a DRC in Waterloo, a DRC in the Des Moines area, so the central part of the state, as well as a DRC in Sioux City, and a DRC in Burlington. So we try and hit the center of the state as well as the corners of the state. So we try to hit as much of a mass appeal. And then I am the project lead, and I help with not only supporting those 5 individuals, but other parts of the state that may have a question related to some disability activities. If you're serving folks, if you're located in one of those 5 regions, there are additional supports and services that your customers can get based on the DEI project. One is there's additional funding, and that funding can be applied for a variety of ways, partly to supplement the activities that we're already doing with WIOA, so helping individuals with education and training, helping individuals with job supports, but also maybe funding additional services like job coaching, supportive services. So maybe there's need for transportation, purchase of assistive technology, helping get an accommodation for a specific job. Those are things that we can do even more so in those 5 regions. And we're really tasked of utilizing that. So if you are serving an area that's represented by those DEI projects, I really implore you to connect with the centers in those areas, with the DRCs in those areas, because there's a lot of partnering that can result from that. Also, each one of those regions has at least quarterly what is called a local leadership team meeting. And that local leadership team meeting is to get a pulse of what the community needs in regards to disability access, especially when it comes to education and employment. These are meetings that occur quarterly. The DRCs facilitate them, so you should see all their information. If you would like to be a part of this, to be present, to observe a meeting, to actually join the local leadership team, you definitely can do that. The manner would just be to contact the DRC that serves that region and find out, A, when the next meeting is, and that you're going to attend. All right. So that is a good way, again, of representing the folks you may serve to really maybe address a need that's being unmet at this point. Some regions meet more than quarterly, but the best thing to do would be to contact the DRC in that region. And what I can also do, Dave, if you would like, I can forward out when those meetings are, and if you wanted to, or Jess, if you guys want to make those public, you definitely can, and you can also attend those as well. I know in each one of those 5 regions, they want as robust and a turnout as possible. Okay?
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay. So with that, you should hopefully the next slide, or maybe you're already on it, is a slide that has those 5 DRC's contacts. And again, we're in Spencer, and again, these are regions, so they're not just in Spencer, but the office is in Spencer, the office that is in Waterloo, the office that is in Des Moines, the office that is in Sioux City, and the office that is in Burlington, Iowa. So with that, that is a very large scope of what we do. I also have in that final slide contact information for both myself as the DEI lead and Sheila Stokel, who's the statewide Ticket to Work lead. If you reside in a region or you're serving folks in a region that's not covered by DEI, you can definitely always start with whoever is the Ticket to Work contact in your region, or you can call me or Sheila, and we can connect you with that as well. Again, our goal is to make sure that we're connecting you with the service and supports around the state as much as we possibly can. I sent Jess a document that also lists out, again, for every region, the location of the center, the phone number, as well as every region has a ticket contact. In fact, some regions have multiple ticket contacts, so their names, numbers, as well as for the 5 regions that have a DRC, their information. So I'm sure Jess will be sending that out to everyone as well.
Thank you, Brian. I will. I actually pulled it up, so it's on the screen now for folks to see, just so they know what it looks like. But I've made it available for download at the end of the webinar and can also attach it and send it out.
Fantastic. So I know I went a little faster, and forgive my technical difficulties, but I wanted to make sure that I, A, gave an overview, and there's a lot. I wanted to, A, give an overview of everything that can be done by partnering with the workforce centers, but I definitely want to make sure that I left time for folks to ask me questions, because you may have some experiences that we can potentially help out with. So that's my presentation, but I would definitely like to open it up for any questions that folks may have.
Hey, Brian, this is Dave. You talked a little bit about the Ticket to Work program and the workforce centers being employment networks. Could you share a little bit about if an individual comes in needing those services that has a ticket, what would happen in terms of benefit planning, and how would workforce staff and DEI staff consider that?
Sure. Okay. So the first step is honestly can happen just from doing membership. One of the first things that happen is, so we'll use Dave as an example. If Dave access any center in the state, when he does his membership, it's going to ask if Dave receives benefits. And if Dave clicks yes, the next step in that membership process will be, it will list it as a ticket to work referral. So at that point, that person is going to be on the individual's radar. But if a person really has a question about ticket to work, they want to either assign their ticket or just needs benefits planning, if they come into the center, they can simply ask any person that they run into, the person that greets them, and just say, I have a ticket I'd like to assign. I have a question about ticket to work. I want to do benefits planning. And they will connect them with a ticket person in that actual center. That center is a DEI region. The DEI person is also the ticket contact, so you'll get kind of double bang for your buck. You can also contact the individual directly. That's why I want to make sure everyone has folks as contact info. You can just call the individual. In fact, I had a couple calls myself for another region that just said, hey, I have a question about ticket to work. You can definitely do that. Once a person identifies that they have a ticket they want to assign or they need benefits planning. So I don't want you to feel that if you have a question about benefits and your ticket is already assigned to another employment network, that we wouldn't assist you with benefits planning. Again, our goal is to provide whatever assistance you need to move to employment. And for many folks that are on benefits, that's their first question is, if I get a job, what's going to happen to my benefits? I heard that if I get a job on Monday, on Tuesday, my benefits stop. What's going to happen to my waiver? There's a lot of those types of questions. So we're in this together. So if you come in, we will do benefits planning with you. And what will happen is you will sit down with one of our ticket contacts or our DEI person, and we do a benefits planning session with you. Probably do more than one because there's a lot that goes into it. So we begin by first off answering your question. Lots of folks have very specific questions, and then we give you an overview, and we create your ticket plan if your ticket is assignable. And part of that plan would be what services will a person receive from us. We always, if an individual, unless they're already working or they're going through some type of training, we always establish a person's job search plan by coming into the center. So if Dave comes in and Dave is currently not working, he's not going through some type of training, skill building exercise, we're going to want to establish a job search agreement, a job search plan with Dave. Dave, what are your employment goals? How can we assist you with that? Whether it's helping you upgrade your skill set, whether it's working with connecting with employers, sending you leads, maybe helping you work up that resume. You may have some other barriers, like maybe there's a criminal background that we need to discuss, or maybe there's a barrier such as transportation we need to address. And what we really like to do mostly is to do what we call our IRT meetings. And forgive me for throwing the alphabet soup at you. IRT meetings stand for Integrated Resource Team Meetings. These are basically partner meetings. who is in support of this individual. So an individual may come in, they have a case manager, they have someone through VR, they maybe have someone through some type of residential setting, they have family members, they have natural supports. Whoever's going to be assisting this individual, can we sit down and talk? This meeting is led by the individual. We're there to help. But to talk about what do we need to do to help Dave get and keep a job, and who's going to do what. So we will pull those meetings together and look at, again, coming up with a good, holistic plan to assist Dave in his independence. Other questions?
Brian, thank you. One follow-up question, a little different topic. You'd mentioned the business service teams, and could you talk a little bit about how you and or employment providers might interact with the business service teams to share information, to network together with local businesses? How do you envision those communications happening as we collaborate together?
Sure. Okay, so the best thing to do when it comes to connecting with your business services team is first off coming in and establishing membership and meeting with the individual first on some career planning. So whether that's someone on our general floor or, more importantly, getting connected with a case manager in our intensive services. From that point, then what we'll do is that we'll bring in the business services team to work at development of a relationship with an employer for that individual. We first want to make sure that the individual is employment ready. So oftentimes the first step is that we go through some work readiness steps with you to make sure the person is ready to move into their employment, and especially that they have a clearly defined goal. From there, then our business services team and workforce you'll divide up employers either by sector or by location. Because we serve multiple counties at times, some regions divide up, okay, you're going to do county A, I do county B, but more often it's by sector. So I work in retail. This person over here may work in food service. This individual may work with transportation. This individual may work with the healthcare providers, so on and so forth. And at that point, what we do is that we bring in a business services specialist who will sit down with the individual, understand their background, look at their employment background, look at their resume, understand their skill sets, if there's any barriers, and then we'll approach employers to develop contacts with those individuals and do whatever support that person would need. So facilitate getting an interview. Oftentimes, especially if they are in a DEI region, that DEI person may assist them with the interview process if that's needed. If there's already a connection that can assist with the interview process, if that's needed, that person can support with that. And that individual will stay with the individual until they're hired. And we follow the aspect of when a person gets any type of intensive level of service, that we follow that person for 1 year after they find a job. So we technically close their activities after 90 days, but even after that 90 days, they get an additional 9 months of minimally quarterly follow-up of how's your job going, tell me what's going on, and if something comes up between those quarterly contacts, let us know. But that's how I see that process going. That's how the process generally flows. Is first we connect you with a case manager, and then the case manager networks with that business services individual to work on connecting for jobs.
It sounds to me like, kind of going back to one of the first comments you made, Brian, which I really thought was important, is the saying of we don't serve that customer, that nobody should hear that description.
Right.
So if we have an individual that has some significant barriers or that we know may not come across the best, that it's very important to be communicating with the membership team, identify the case manager, the workforce contact, and be communicating what we know about their contributions, abilities, strengths, and figure out how do we partner together to move forward. And I thought you brought up some really good examples of where that could be pertinent.
And the big point is, as we're looking at any type of system change and trying to make the wheel roll smoother and to do better service across the board, workforce may be a partner that you're bringing in, later in the process. So it's for everyone's benefit for us to really know what this individual contributes in the employment world. And it's really not even a disability thing as much as if there's an individual that someone else has greater history with, let us know. I mean, it's really a teaming, partnering access, but it's definitely if the person may have some barriers that we need to take into account when we're out there marketing that individual to an employer. If there are things that maybe are not readily seen, please let us know that. If there's challenges that may develop and the ways to deal with those challenges, please let us know that. Again, we don't come in as the experts of we know everything about every individual. That's where we want to hear from the individual. We want to hear from the folks that may be in support of that individual. How can we be most effective at our jobs? Any other questions?
Doesn't seem so. But if folks
Okay.
think of anything in the meantime, please send that in and I'll get that off to Brian, or if things come up in the weeks ahead as you access the centers maybe more or connect with folks. Again, let us know if you have any questions or reach out to Brian.
Yeah.
Hey Jess, I would follow up with that too, because Brian kind of said he could be a point of contact. So I would really encourage, as Brian said, to be communicating with the local workforce teams. But if for some reason you're not getting feedback or confused over what's happening, Brian is a great resource. He won't be interfering with the local team, but could he certainly help with the dialogue and the communication and give you ideas and strategies of how to approach that. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of his role.
And, I know sometimes it gets a little, and again, I don't anticipate ever anyone getting a lot of pushback. But, this is a change, and unfortunately sometimes there may be a barrier. It may just be an individual got busy that didn't get you called back, or I asked this question, I didn't get the answer that I was looking for. If you just need someone to maybe ease the process, I am more than happy to do that. And sometimes it's easier to take it from someone that's internal versus external. All those things. So again, my goal is always to make sure that any customer that comes into the center gets what they need. And is sending me an email going, hey, I went into Center X and I had a hard time connecting with someone, or I didn't get the answer I was looking for. Can you follow up? I'm more than happy to pick up my phone, to break up my keyboard, and to connect to any way I can do to kind of make things work better. So please, you will never bother me. So please don't hesitate to call me or shoot me an email and let me know what I can do to help, and I'm more than happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you again, Brian. I'll be sure to share your contact information there. I'll pull it out of the presentation so folks have easier access to it. I've opened up our kind of closing window here in the polls, so please let us know if today's webinar was helpful and your takeaways. You can download the presentation there, as well as the DEI statewide contact list team that Brian generated for us, as well as the Iowa Works services for people with disabilities. That nice doc that Brian generated for us, it's all right there. You can download it directly, but again, I'll be sure to attach it when I send things back out. Again, I want to draw your attention to those of you who need a certificate of attendance. You see the pod right there. Please put your name and your, I'm sorry, excuse me. I got a good tickle going there. Put your name and agency in there, and I'll be sure to get you back a certificate of attendance. I promise to get that to you. Be patient with me, but I promise to get that to you before the next webinar, May 9th. So we will be back Tuesday, May 9th from 1 to 2 p.m. And we will be talking about everything WIOA and Section 511 that day. We'll be hosting Paige Easton with the Department of Human Rights, Leanne Russo with Folk Rehab and Leanne Mauskowitz with Iowa Medicaid, and we'll just do an update on kind of where everything's at and what the different partners are doing, different guidance, resources, and tools as we all partner together to get this figured out. So again, we'll be back May 9th. We hope to see you there. And again, we'll change platforms in May. So look for information on that. And again, we'll try to make that as smooth and as easy as possible. Thanks for joining us today. And I'll leave the room open there so you can continue to respond and download. I appreciate you joining us today. Thanks again, Brian, and we'll see you guys in May.